your mic. And so good evening, and starting just a few minutes early as we're getting started. We're going to James has got an announcement on a sale going on FinerWorks, so we're going to bring that up. So let me pull up that window and we can take a look on FinerWorks, what we got, what savings we got here for you right now. And James, you want to talk about the sale?
Stickers and magnets. Okay. So one of the items that in the past year or two has really grown in popularity is our sticker lineup. Custom contour cut stickers. And then we added magnets at magnetic media, I guess you would call it, a few months back. And ever since then, this is really just taken off. And we did raise prices just a small bit a few months back, but wanted to make sure that we made up for that by having some sales whenever we had some excess media. So take advantage now. It's going to be available for 30% off on your custom cut stickers and magnets through Saturday, I believe. Saturday at midnight. And that's the only special we got going on right now.
We just ended one over the weekend.
Yeah,
so hopefully a lot of y'all took pictures or took advantage of that, and will send us some pictures on the unboxing because we love sharing your art. And thank you to all of you who've been doing these great videos. We've been putting them up on our YouTube as shorts, and you're seeing them in our newsletter. So thank you very much for all of those on there.
Yeah.
Go ahead and take.
I don't think I have any other announcements. I do know some people have asked about when am I going to write that third article about AI, artificial intelligence, and it's been real interesting. I do want to do a first Tuesday about AI in art because
next one.
I don't know who we were going to line up to talk about it because we've gotten some really kind of crazy mixed messaging on that, or maybe my messaging has been mixed because where I have not been pro API, people assumed I was, and then vice versa.
I think Geekdom tonight is actually doing an AI.
So
maybe we can find some good speakers that would come over here.
So, but it's been interesting. Some people, thought, how could I push AI? And I'm not necessarily pushing AI because I myself consider myself somewhat of a purist when it comes to fine art, which is kind of ironic because really kind of got my start into the art realm doing digital artwork. But when it comes to photography, I really do appreciate people that are able to capture that shot, that really fantastic shot without doing any Photoshop work or Lightroom work afterwards, as well as those that are doing that are I have a lot of respect for traditional painters because it's it's a one-of-kind unique type of artwork. So I do consider myself somewhat of a purist. I'm not, but I do see some advantages that AI, where it can benefit artists, especially when it comes to self-promotion. That's what I'm working on right now, in a post about that, how they can utilize it. I do not believe AI is going to, be a threat to traditional artists, but I do see some dangers to the art marketplace. I guess is the best way to put it. When it comes to, and this will be a great, question to ask Norman here when we get into this is when it comes to AI technology or some of the technologies as well used along with AI, how they will affect the art marketplace in the future. And it will. There will be areas that it's going to affect, not necessarily replacing original artwork, although there is some things in place, technologies in place where it almost could, or be perceived to be doing so, but where more or less where it comes to helping the artist get discovered.
Yeah. So, I saw a great poll on LinkedIn where people were asking if they are less impressed with AI artwork. And I think it was like 69% had said yes, they're less impressed. However, I think a good follow-up question was, can you tell the difference between the AI artwork and the original artwork and show like a group of photos and see which ones? Now, my daughter has been training me to look for it in the nose, in the fingers and stuff to kind of really see. And I'm catching those. Like you had showed us that video of a pizza commercial that.
But you know,
like a horror movie.
But from someone with a tech background that been coding and working with the OpenAI API, which is their integration, it's real interesting to see how you can kind of utilize what we call prompts, which are basically it's the equivalent of typing in a question, okay, and depend upon and how you utilize that and how you use the API depends upon which I guess what I forgot what it's called, but which API you're using. But it's interesting how slightly structuring when it comes to images, okay, at least, okay, slightly structuring how you order your wording affects how the picture comes in. And one of the things that AI artists do is they really focus on tailoring their artwork based upon how they're providing, this is how it's supposed to look, kind of creating it, providing a written reference, at least in the case, what I've been, playing with. But it's going to be an interesting thing to see as it grows. But everyone should probably check out the 2 articles I've written on our blog. And I'm not saying I have the answers, and I don't know what the future. I can't say for sure what the future is going to result in as far as how it affects the fine art community and fine art sales and the business of fine art, but it's going to be an interesting thing to see.
Yeah, and you can access that. Like, go into our newsletter and just look at one of James's articles. You click on that, and I believe that'll bring also the second blog on, right?
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Okay. So I guess we should get started here and introduce.
Let's go ahead and introduce Norman here. Let me go ahead and set you up over here. Well, Norman Renglick, welcome. We want to thank you first off for doing this. This has been something a lot of people have asked about, is getting somebody from a gallery background to come and speak to our clientele, which is mostly artists and photographers. And you have the San Antonio Artists Collective Gallery here in San Antonio, here in La Cantera, which is, when you opened those locations that you're at, that's where every gallery should have opened. I mean, in San Antonio, we do have the art district downtown, in Southtown at the Blue Star, that surrounding community, which used to be such a great place because you had King William right there. Those homes are, $1 million homes. But I want to say the commerce of art, the art buyers in San Antonio are farther north. So you're in a really good location. And now you first came on, you said you started with the website and said you really didn't have you weren't a former art gallery, you weren't an artist. So your background was a little different. Tell us about how you got into becoming an art gallery owner, and then tell us a little bit about your gallery.
Sure. Okay. Well, first of all, thank you for having me. I think this is the first kind of live interview that I've done, so this is really exciting. But yeah, to answer your question, you're right. I had no background in art whatsoever. I'm probably the last person that anybody who knows me would ever imagine would be involved in anything having to do with art. I've never really shown, not that I didn't appreciate art. I appreciate art in the same way that most people do, but I certainly wasn't a collector or an art enthusiast or anything like that. And the way this came to be was at a party one night. So this was roughly 6 years ago, and a friend of ours who's kind of he's got some contacts in the art community. He's pretty involved when it comes to music and just all different styles of art. He has a lot of friends and contacts in that world. And he was throwing a big party and invited us to his party. And at his home, he was allowing some local artists to use some space in his home to show some of their art to his invited guests. And so, you know, I spent the night. I was really interested in it. I thought it was a really neat idea, and I really liked a lot of the art that I saw. Different things, you know, smaller sculptures and all kinds of different things, not just paintings. And so later that night, you know, we got back home, and I was just waiting for my wife to get to bed. And so I'm flipping through my phone, just killing time, looking for some local San Antonio art because it was top of mind from the party. And the longer I looked, the more frustrating it was that I just couldn't find anything. It was almost impossible to find an actual catalog of San Antonio art, or even an artist's website where you could be sure or have any confidence whatsoever that the art that was on the website was actually current and not, you know, from 10 years ago and no longer available or whatever it might be. So it just popped into my head. It occurred to me that if it was taking me that long to find what I was looking for, then there was only two possible scenarios. And one is that it didn't exist, what I was looking for, or it did exist, but it wasn't being done in a way that was where they were making themselves easy to find. So I was excited about it that night. I couldn't stop thinking about it. And then the next morning when I woke up, the first thing I did is I just registered a name. I thought I don't even remember anymore what was the name of the first website that I was going to put together. But I remember the first two were not available, probably because they were really good. so there was somebody else had the idea. But the third name that I came up which was gallerysa.com, to my surprise, was available. And so I just immediately registered it. And this was, I think this was a Saturday morning or a Sunday morning. And so I spent the rest of the day building the website. This very kind of bare bones, you know, GoDaddy out of the box website. And I put it together in you know, just the kind of skeleton of it that I liked. And that night I was already trying to find local artists online. So I started just, you know, firing off emails to anybody that I could find in San Antonio that was a you know, locally based artist. And that's how it all started. And, you know, 0 artists became 1 and became 3 and so on and so on. And here we are today, and it's about 120 artists.
Wow. So just to go back a little bit, you know, what did you do before this? Did you have a web development background? Were you in marketing or programming? Yeah. What kind of what were you doing?
There is nothing in my background that lends itself to putting a website together. Absolutely nothing. I had no experience whatsoever. It was all, but I love, you know, I've always been, I love problem solving. You know, I've always liked math. I've always liked, you know, the sciences and things. Not that I was ever good at any of those things, but I liked them. I like doing them. And I've always been kind of handy, you know, with a computer, not because of anything I had done professionally or in the workplace. It's just I always liked computers. but I have no programming background whatsoever. So I just jumped in and figured out how to do it. And sometimes when I look back, and I guess where I'm kind of most proud of it, to be honest with you, is if I have somebody who works at the gallery who doesn't, maybe know how to do something, and I've got to explain to them how it's done. That's when I start to realize kind of how complicated it was. Putting it all together when you have to explain it to somebody, you say, "Wow, it's that wasn't. It's not obvious how to put together a website." So, I just figured it out.
That's kind of what I did the first time I put together a website and just kind of jumped in. And so I'm intrigued by that because I myself didn't have a background in it. It was just something, hey, jump in and try it and kind of figure it out as, chip away at it, figure out as you go along. And so that's exciting to hear that I'm not that unique in that.
Yeah, very similar. It's just to me, it was a real challenge, and it was a puzzle that I was trying to figure out. And I think I had a pretty good idea of what, at that time anyway, what I wanted it to look like. And I think it was being designed to meet the unfulfilled need that I was looking for. So I had a pretty good idea of what I wanted to build. And then of course that has since changed a number of times. It never ends. I'm sure it's the case with you as well, but it never ends. I'm always looking for ways to improve it and, adding new functionality to the website and trying to make it just a better user experience for people who visit the site.
Yeah, absolutely. That's totally understandable. Now,
let's take a look actually at your site. Now, this is what you go to when you hit a gallery sa.com, correct? This is where you start.
That's the main landing page. Yeah.
And you have information here for artists, but you also have Meet the Artist here where people can go in and start taking a look at some of the artists that you do carry. And some of them I'm familiar with, two just from prints and knowing a few people from Blue Star community.
Yeah, and the way that it works is, if you were to click on any one of these artists, it would then take you to our online store for only their art.
Now, just to be clear for everyone, you are not an online store. You are a traditional gallery with a online presence that allows for online, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. But it's interesting. The way that we started, that was never intended to be the case. And so I never dreamt in my wildest imagination that we would have a physical look. I keep saying I, by the way, it's my wife and I, and we're equal partners, and we're she does a lot more of the heavy lifting than I do. So she's not here with me, but she's definitely an equal partner. So, but we never had any designs to have a physical gallery space. I had intended it to be an online store, and that's it. And just almost through a freak kind of series of events, it turned out that we had an opportunity to do a pop-up. And then one thing led to another, and you kind of ride the wave. You saw a big wave come in, and I jumped on it, and eventually did end up in a physical space. And so, I guess when the whole thing started, I'd envisioned it as being the kind of Amazon of the local original art world. Mm-hmm. And at least from a business model standpoint, I'm not going to say in terms of how the gallery is positioned in terms of the art that we sell, but it's more like a Walmart in the sense that it's brick and mortar and online. And I think that long term, that's the way it's got to be. I think people do want to see the art, especially when it's original art, which is what we sell. A lot of people want to see it, but the website allows them at least to narrow down what they're looking for, see the selection, and then kind of reach out to the gallery to say, hey, I saw this on the website. It's a lot of money. I want to see it. And that's where the brick and mortar comes in very handy. So
Absolutely.
it's really it's a mix.
Now,
and there's some good options that you have there. I see that you have the Affirm payment option and
Right.
PayPal. When I worked at an art gallery, PayPal credit I found in selling art was a great way for me to make that sale because the gallery got paid immediately, and the financing was between the buyer and PayPal credit, and I was able to pay the artist then immediately, as opposed to doing a layaway in-house where that could take 6 months, and I might have had a buyer for it that would have paid upfront immediately. And so yeah, it's nice that you have that option on there. Is that something that's available in store as well? Are there online sales techniques that you've kind of implemented in store, in person?
Yes. So really, every the entire experience that's online is also available in the gallery. I'm really, you kind of touched on two things that I'm really proud of about the gallery. One of them is the financing that we offer, and we do offer PayPal. But what I like about Affirm is that if somebody were to, for example, if you were to apply, Melissa, and Affirm decides, I'm sure you're a very nice lady, but it's not going to happen. We're not going to finance a $5,000 painting for you. Then the beauty of Affirm is that it never did happen. So it has zero impact on your credit score, so it's no risk to apply. And for me, that was very important. I just looked at it from the standpoint of, if I was buying it, would I want to risk, doing damage to my credit report if I didn't have to? And so Affirm is to me, that was really what made them stand out above any other financing option that was out there. They're the only ones that I know of that do that. So that's one thing that I'm proud to offer customers. But then the other thing, like to your point, is that I can pay the artists immediately, and that's something that I'm very proud of as well. Is that our gallery pays our artists very, very quickly. Literally the second the money is in our account, whether it's from Affirm or whether it's from a credit card payment processor or PayPal, we don't wait. So we don't, for example, pay out on at the end of every month or anything like that. If we have it, then the artist gets it, and it's not a myth that you have a lot of starving artists out there. It's not just there's some truth to that. There are a lot of artists who, not just artists, but just people in general. We've all been there, and where you could really use that money. And so it's something that the gallery is able to do, and I'm really, really happy to do that for the artists.
Sure. So I guess we should probably get into some questions that artists are going to have about how to get, from their perspective, and dealing with a gallery, because from what I'm seeing here is this is just a really well developed art gallery, from both a business perspective as well as a traditional business perspective, as well as an online perspective, really well thought out, very effective. And so, and not every gallery out there is going to be as functional as Norman's gallery, but I'm sure he has some good advice for artists that are going to Persian galleries.
Well, we'll start with, what's y'all's process? And like I said, there are many different galleries out there. There's a commercial gallery, there are artist-owned galleries, there's co-op galleries. How did you select the model of gallery you were going to be like? You said you didn't have that art background. Did you at one point think of partnering? What made you decide, to go in as a gallery-owned, or actually family-owned gallery here, and plow within? How do you take submissions in for artists? How are you finding the artists when you started?
Right. So, that's it's probably a question that I would have answered very differently 5 years ago. So when we first started out, I was just looking for any artist. I mean, that's the truth. If you had a box of crayons, you're in. You're an art, you're in. That's no, that's kind of how it started. We're obviously to a point now where we can be much more selective about the artists that we bring in, but we can bring in, I think, more artists than a typical gallery because we're not limited by a physical space. So we can really put as many artists online as we like. But that said, you still have to be careful not to cloud the really great art with just a lot of noise all around it from people that aren't, where they need to be yet, as far as getting their work into a gallery. So you can't be all things to all people. I'll take a good example. If you talk about, let's say, abstract art, there's a lot of people out there who'll do acrylic pours, who do all kinds of things. And we do sell a lot of abstract art. But now it's kind of come to the point where, if we're going to bring in an abstract artist, then I think the bar is set a lot higher now than it was, let's say, 4 years ago. And now what we're looking for is, we want to see that you're kind of a master of your technique. That it's not just, it's great if you want to make abstract art because it's therapeutic and it helps you calm down or whatever it is, and you do it for those types of reasons. But it has to be good. You have to be able to demonstrate that you have a technical proficiency at your craft, as opposed to you just like to make abstract art. And then beyond that, I would say, really what we're looking for now is what sets you apart. So, for example, I think the best way, if you're an abstract artist and you're looking to join the gallery, I think the way that you should look at it, I'm not necessarily saying this is the way that it would be, but the way, if you were trying to, let's say, promote yourself to the gallery or try to get in, you might want to ask yourself, if I had to displace another abstract artist who is in the gallery in order for me to get in, on what grounds or on what basis do I think I would displace that other artist? It's kind of, I know it sounds kind of cruel. It sounds business kind of and heartless, but I think there's some truth to it. We get inundated with a lot of different artists at all, different levels of ability. And so I think if you're an artist, I think that's the question you have to ask yourself if you're trying to get into a gallery. What sets mine apart from everybody else's, and talk about your quality and your craft.
It's like interviewing for a job and trying to, there's maybe one position open and you want to try to, and there's multiple applicants. It's basically the same thing. Is you need to show that as an artist that you have something to offer the gallery, because the gallery is a business. The galleries, the purpose of the gallery is to generate income for the people running the gallery, the employees of that gallery, as well as the artists themselves.
Right.
And if the artist does not bring something to the table to help facilitate that, then there's no reason for that gallery to represent the artist. That's what I'm hearing you're saying.
Right. I think that's I would agree with that completely. Like I said, we've become more selective. My wife and I go back and forth on this, quite a bit, obviously, and especially when we receive a new artist to consider, and we don't always agree on whether or not somebody should come in. Sometimes it's very obvious that person, we're lucky to have them, and we're thankful that they approach the gallery, and there's certainly some great art out there. But one thing that might not be obvious to the people that are listening or that will see this in the future is that the main criteria, obviously, this is San Antonio artists, so you've got to live here. The whole point is, the money that goes back to the artist, the proceeds from the sale, we're hoping that that's going to stay here in the local community. So that's really what this is all about. So I do get a lot of submissions from artists who are not based in San Antonio, or artists who kind of try to work around it, and they'll say, well, I live in Monterrey, Mexico, for example, but I happen to own a home in San Antonio and I spend 2 months a year there. Well, that's not going to cut it. This is all about local art 100%. And when we say local, what we mean is kind of the metro area. So if you live in New Braunfels or you live in Burnie, that's fine. We consider that to kind of, metro area. That's number. Go ahead.
Artists to kind of research a gallery.
Because not all galleries are going to be
exactly.
regional centric or be centered, around like a certain, like San Antonio has a culture, and Norman's Gallery helps represent that San Antonio culture. But not every gallery is going to
exactly like
regional.
The gallery I worked in Austin, we are the largest contemporary art gallery, but we would have people who were artists and they're very talented that would position us with very, the blue bonnets. And I'm like, we're a contemporary gallery. Our clientele tends to go with a little more edgy kind of art. The blue bonnets, while you have all the talent, we could put that on our wall and it will sit there a year.
Yeah. So the gallery needs, the artist really needs to research the gallery to say, does that gallery, do I offer something that gallery would be looking for? Does my art represent what that gallery wants to represent?
Yeah. So I would say that's kind of part of it, is researching the gallery for representation.
I think it's a mistake for, if it's like, if I'm an artist and I'm going to every single gallery out there and say, hey, look at my work. I mean, it's kind of like you're really just cutting yourself short. You're working too hard to get represented, first of all, because the chances of you getting represented by a gallery that just does contemporary artwork, if you do bluebonnet paintings, are slim to none. So the artists need to take some time to do their homework and find that gallery which represents them. If they're, if I'm painting pictures of San Antonio missions and things or things that are really kind of, really specific to what Norman is looking for, maybe not necessarily that subject matter. If I'm just using that example,
Mary Jean Renglick showed there, which is the crows, the foxes.
I would, seek out representation from a gallery like Norman's, but I probably wouldn't take it to Art on Fifth. And
like with your gallery, what you're positioning is that these artists are local, and you carry a lot of different styles, because I've been into both, and like I said, we've had Mary Jean Renglick on our first Tuesday, so we have, and we do her places.
And that's kind of what Norman started off at. Your initial concept was to be almost like a directory.
Yeah. Right. That's exactly right.
And then it kind of
which is
expanded into being a gallery.
When you came in, the San Antonio Cultural Arts Department here didn't really have a directory. Only this year have I seen them really make an initiative to make a directory of the San Antonio gallery artists and galleries here. So, like you said, you filled a niche in San Antonio, a need that
kind of paved the way for that.
To kind of really be an online source for that. When an artist wants to convey, you were mentioning how you think an artist should say, they should kind of convey that difference. When they are first making a submission, let's say to your gallery, and they're going to include the images of their work. I mean, I know just from taking in submissions and stuff from all over the world. Some can be a lengthy email. And honestly, we can't go through an lengthy email. Sometimes we'll see somebody who will say, I noticed you carry XYZ artists. My art is along that lines, but you're going to find as you open these that maybe these techniques or whatever are going to just slightly be different in something that, your clientele may like. And I've liked those really quick little simple bullet point ones that are not 4 or 5 paragraphs on how do you prefer an artist to convey their difference in those introductory emails to you?
Yeah, it's interesting actually. I really enjoy getting an email from somebody where the passion for their art is kind of really coming through in their email. I love to read about that. It's kind of like a high, their enthusiasm for it, their passion and love for the art. But I think that, so I don't mind that. I don't mind if it's a long, lengthy email. That's all right. What I think they should be focused on, though, is, it's great to know about why they make their art. But I think that they shouldn't neglect, putting in the email why they think this art would resonate with people who are looking at it. Right. So it's not, you could say, oh, well, I was in a car accident in 1962. So I started painting and I found that it helped with my lower back pain and, and all those things. And I grew up and I love daisies or whatever it is. That's great. But, and maybe that's the inspiration for why you make your art. And it's good and it's a great story to tell in the gallery, by the way, when customers come in, to be able to talk about the artist and what's their inspiration. So there's value in all of that. But I think very often people will neglect to mention what sets their art apart and why they think it's going to resonate with my clientele. And to your point, James, I think it's important to at least take a stab at trying to figure out who is this gallery's clientele. Like, how are they positioned? What are they looking for? And how does your art meet that need? So I think that's very important. So I like reading their story. I love to know about their inspiration, but I think they also, need to make an effort to explain why it would resonate with my gallery clientele. I think another important thing is when you're submitting the art, what I like to see, and I'm not saying it's the right way or the wrong way. I'm not an art expert. I'm certainly not qualified to curate, an extremely high-end gallery. I'm not, that's not who I am. But what I like to see, and I make the decisions for my gallery, is I like to see a body of work where you can kind of look at it and say, okay, that's that artist. No matter what I look at, that's that artist. And I think that, when you get submissions from people and, one painting might be of a field of bluebonnets in a very, very classical, painting like you would have seen in your grandparents' home. And then the next one is something just totally different. And the third one is nothing to do with the first two. I don't think I'm not attracted to that personally. I like to see a body of work that shows some consistency. Or at least if they're different, you can see some type of growth. You can see a migration from point A to point B and say, okay, I can see where that, how that artist arrived at this point. But just throwing a whole bunch of different examples out there of things that you have done, one had nothing to do with each other, doesn't help getting you into the gallery, and I don't think does you any favors when trying to market yourself to the public.
Yeah, I do know that artists need to have a certain amount of uniformity within their work, whether or not they're selling in a gallery or selling online, because it makes it part of a body of work versus just another pretty picture to see.
Well, a signature style is something that's, well, on the gallery end, it's kind of easier also on the sale. I have somebody who comes in looking for a specific artist. They want it because in their mind, they already know what that style is. So like locally, I got into this because I like collecting art, Robert Tatum, Rubio, and they have very distinctive my daughter grew up with those things, so she can go anywhere in San Antonio. She's not an art person, but she'll know, oh, that's a Rubio mural, or that's a Tatum mural, or that's a David Blanca's mural. She knows because she's grown up with the art style, and
she recognizes.
And again, she's a computer person.
She may not have ever seen that piece before, but she
style.
Recognizes the style, and I think that's what Norman's saying is that
So
you want
artists who've already discovered their sense of style already,
or at least have a sense of style.
Yeah.
As they're creating.
Yeah, I think so. I think I think where I might make an exception to that is if I were to see somebody who I just thought, again, to me, just had outstanding creative ability. They were just, I couldn't take my eyes off it. And it was just something that I thought was absolutely amazing. And even in the absence of a style necessarily, but if I saw, I might go back to the artist and say, hey, I want more of those. So I'm not going to bring in these ones, but I really like that one. If you had more like that, then I'd love to get you up on the website. So, a great example, by the way, is as we talked about earlier, is Mary Jean. I mean, you could look at Mary Jean's work and say, that's Mary Jean.
Yeah.
There's a couple of them, in the beginning, she did a couple of one-offs or two-offs where you might say, I don't recognize that. But for the most part, we used to have in our gallery, actually, the first gallery space that we were in at La Cantera had changing rooms. And so what we had done is we had created, each changing room was done for one particular artist, and it was just their work on the 3 walls. And Mary Jean had a wall or a little changing room that was awesome. You walked in and you said, wow, like this is a body of work for this artist. And, they're all different, but they're all clearly the same by the same artist. And that's very, this is going to sound horrible to say, but just even from a merchandising standpoint, it's a terrible thing to say for art. But just from a merchandising standpoint, it's very impactful and very beautiful, and helps to sell the art.
It does.
Well, you being where you are, you have to be conscientious of merchandising, because
right.
I think most people, when they think of a gallery, they think of a standalone building, and that's almost, kind of
museum-like.
But really, most galleries are probably more like what Norman has, where it's in a heavy retail area, establishment, a lot of foot traffic, where where shoppers are going. And so so the gallery, I think the artist has to be willing to say, hey, yeah, you're not going into the Smithsonian or the Philadelphia Art Museum, or something. You're going into a retail location. Your art's going to be retail, and you have to be. And
this is where there were art, like again with opening a gallery, I think is the choice of where. Like I said, there are very artist-led galleries, so they go by with what they can afford. So they might go to, say, the south side of San Antonio, where the retail space might be more affordable, but then you cannot command those prices that you would say on the north side, because you do not have that foot traffic with that disposable income. So in the selection where you placed your galleries in San Antonio, to me, that is such a boost for the San Antonio artists, because they really did need that platform to show their art to people who don't always want to come all the way downtown and go find these little niche galleries within Blue Star. And there's so many talented people. Again, you're attracting the same people. You're attracting. Like I said, when First Friday started in San Antonio, it was much like the art party experience you went to. You could go into the King William homes. You'd be in these beautiful homes, and the homeowner was hosting an artist, and it was this great experience. And you had art lovers in there. Whereas now it's kind of a party, sort of, to go in and have.
But I think it, the
it's
difference
not the same
is
income.
no, because the people that are going to La Cantera Mall and buying art tend to be people that have, that they're going to be an older crowd. It probably, I'm guessing your average customer client is probably 50 plus years old. 50 plus. It's going to be.
I think the average is lower than that.
Yeah,
There's a lot of them.
Okay.
There's no question, but believe it or not, it's mostly I would say people in their late 30s, early 40s
Okay.
that are buying, and there are people who are in the home buying phase.
But they usually have I guess you could say that higher income, well established, educated, versus if you go into some of these other galleries, you're probably going to have a much younger, probably not going to have as high of an income.
Yeah, exactly.
And so you're going to
that's
have
why where you're positioned is such a great place. So there's another gallery in San Antonio, not only San Antonio artist, but she's positioned in a very affluent neighborhood of Alamo Heights and stuff, and that has helped her, and that had been a good spawning ground. But again, I don't think the online experience is quite the same as your site. So that one's more of a gallery that you need to go almost in person, which and it's been around for a number of years. And again, I want to say that's because she picked a good location
and great artists. She also picked
great artists too. I know a number have shown there. And here's a question I've heard from artists when I worked at the other gallery who asked me this. Now you work directly with artists. Have you ever worked with art brokers before that come in with a list of artists
I've had a few people come in over the years of, I don't know, I guess of questionable character that have come in, claiming to, I think, overstating who they were and what was the quality of their artists. Just some people that didn't pass the gut test, I don't think. And so I've always made it clear to them. I said, listen, whatever arrangement that you have with them, that, that's fine. But I want to know who they are. I want proof that they live in San Antonio, because this is because we're all San Antonio artists here. And, I'll deal with you, that, that's fine. So I don't have a problem with it. But I'm more cautious around that. So, but ultimately, it's never worked out for one reason or another. But I don't work with any brokers.
I know we've worked with brokers because they represent a lot of the stuff that we'll get. It'll be in tubes and unstretched canvases, and we have what we call a flip table that we would show people. So, and there's artists that are well known, I want to say, in the decorating kind of aspect. So we get people who come in, these are going to be large wall size. For our gallery, we like it because when we get paid on the framing up, we're going to restretch that canvas for them. We're also more than likely going to frame that piece up. So we would work with some brokers in that case, in knowing those artists nationally and internationally that kind of are, I want to say, decorator darlings, so we had some good selections there. So it wouldn't matter for an artist whether they go with a broker or self-representation to present themselves to a gallery.
No, and also, I just want to clarify, I certainly don't have a negative opinion of art brokers. It has nothing to do with it. It just so happens that the 2 or 3 art brokers that have presented themselves to me were kind of shady. I am absolutely certain that there are a number of very reputable, upstanding art brokers out there. But I think one of the reasons also why I don't really do any business with the brokers is because most professionals, interior designers and decorators, prefer to work with prints. They rarely do they buy original art, and if they are, then they're probably buying it. I would think they're buying extremely high-end art for a lot of money. But there just doesn't seem to be that kind of sweet spot for interior designers and decorators to be selling kind of mid-priced original art. I think they prefer, and it's very rare that they would have a particular need for local art. So I know, for example, that a lot of interior designers and decorators, some of the really, really large outfits out there will import containers from overseas of original hand painted art, by the pound.
Yeah.
So there's just, I'm just not part of that dynamic. I guess.
Yeah, it's kind of I know what you're saying. I don't want to call it cheapens the the perception of originals, but it does. There is this lower end market for these. I guess I don't know what the term I'm looking for, but a kind of almost kind of a turnkey
Kind of right,
original art market kind of deal. What about people that are doing digital artwork or now you work exclusively with original
Correct.
paintings, okay?
Right.
Do people come in? I mean, do people come in that often with digital artwork, or photographers come in, and what advice would you give them, even though you don't, represent them typically? I mean, is there any advice that you might want to give them? Because I do know there are galleries that will carry that.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure what kind of advice I could give them as far as selling their art outside of my gallery. I don't, if I'm being honest, I don't have a tremendous amount of contacts in the San Antonio community with other art galleries. That's just the truth.
Sure.
But we will sometimes sell photography. And for example, when you were up scrolling on the website earlier, I saw that you had Naim Leon, who does photography. And so the challenge that we had with photography, the only reason, in fact, that we don't sell photography in the gallery is not because there isn't plenty of amazing photography here in San Antonio. There is. The challenge that I have is that everybody, it's terrible, but everybody who has one of these thinks they're a photographer.
Sure.
And so what my challenge really is that I don't have the bandwidth to evaluate all of the art that would come in.
Yeah.
And I also don't have the knowledge yet to be able to distinguish between what's good photography and what's not good photography. I just don't know. And so it's a question of bandwidth and it's a question of knowledge. The reason I brought Nain on is because he was doing something that no other artist did that had approached me anyway. So I don't know if he's on an island in terms of what he's doing. I don't think so. But what he's doing that's special is his shots are actually staged. So he's creating the artistic vision by creating an actual setup and then photographing it. So the art is not only in the photography, but the art is actually in the way he creates that setup. And it's fascinating. And people in the gallery, when you talk to them about it and explain, I say, you're not just looking at a two-dimensional picture here. You're looking here at layers of different things that are stacked on top and frozen. And what you see there is actually anywhere from 5 to 8 layers of stacked, florals and plants and things like that. And then they just, their mind is blown. So
again, it's setting, he's setting himself apart, making himself, somewhat unique as far as, which is merchandisable, like as we said.
Yeah.
So
it's very different. Yeah.
Yeah. What about, this was a question, is it better to offer artwork that's matted and framed, or do buyers prefer buying art that's not framed, or what do you guys do?
So it's interesting. I find just from a staging of the gallery, I find it's nicer to have things in frames. That said, I understand that it's expensive. It's expensive for the artist to do it. Not all the artists can afford to frame every single one of their pieces. And the frames that they do choose that are in their budget aren't necessarily doing their pieces any favors. Sure. So it's also kind of a double-edged sword, because now what you have to do is you have to sell this painting twice. You have to sell the painting, and then you have to sell the frame that it's in. Yeah. And so it can be kind of a roadblock. So what I'll say is, if you're an artist, a career artist, and you have a following and you can afford to do it, if you put your art in beautiful frames, modern frames, then I think it helps to sell the art. But if you're just going to grab anything you can find at a Hobby Lobby or an estate sale and kind of pull out what was in there and shove yours in it, and without a lot of thought other than, wow, this is also 16 by 20, just like my canvas, and put that on it, then I think you're not doing yourself any favors. So I would say, if you're not going to frame it, at least try to do a nice gallery wrap. At least make sure that it's finished nicely around the edges, that it looks presentable, and it doesn't look like it's missing something. It was painted. It's not framed because you intended it to not be framed, and because it's going to look beautiful on the wall that way.
Understood. Okay.
Now, with you doing local artists, and then the picture you see up is from y'all's gallery right there, so you can see kind of how things are positioned there. As I said, being that y'all represent local artists, do y'all have, and being in a gallery, the non-compete clause, do y'all do a contract with your artists? And is there something like the non-compete where they cannot show 100 miles of the art of the gallery? Do y'all have something in place like that?
Yeah. So no, I don't. I don't at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And I think, and I don't think I'm ever going to change that, but I might modify it. So, especially when I was starting, it would have been foolish of me to think that anybody would enter into a non-compete with me when I was starting on day one with no background in art, no infrastructure, just nothing. Like, who is this guy and what kind of damage could he potentially do to my reputation if I align myself with him? And on top of that, I'm going to enter into a non-compete. So I think you have to be able to deliver some value first, show your worth, prove yourself as a gallery, your ability to sell their art, and then it becomes a different conversation. And it's not one that we've had yet. So my positioning has always been that I don't want to limit the ability of an artist to put food on the table and to make a living. And so, and until I feel like I'm going to be able to provide a good income for that artist only by selling through my gallery, I'm not going to insist that it's exclusive to my gallery, because I have a conscience. I wouldn't want to handcuff somebody's ability to make a living. Now, that said, I think that where I do see myself getting to a point, though, actually, before I even get there, the one agreement that we do have is that if you're going to sell something in my gallery, then you cannot sell that same piece anywhere else for a lower price. So not to embarrass the gallery, right? Just not to embarrass us. So, that gets a little bit hairy at times, because an artist might say, well, I have my own website, and on my website, I don't have to pay a gallery commission, or I don't have to pay shipping, for example. So all of my prices include shipping all over the country. And so my answer to that is always, I understand you and I hear you, but that's my policy. And if you can't live with that, then we're not meant to do business together. But so if you are selling on your website without gallery commission, and you're selling without shipping, it still has to be the same price as what's on my gallery. That includes shipping and gallery commission anywhere in the country. So
I wrote a whole thing about that, and had told artists it's a disservice to yourself. Match your gallery pricings, because when you start bringing your price down, you're discounting yourself. If you can command that at a gallery, put that on there.
And you'll lose the ability to be represented by that gallery. That gallery is working
we call it
to
gallery
sell
etiquette.
your artwork.
But
it's the same. It's the same
never
thing.
Never undersell your gallery. Never be at the show getting the contacts for the buyers.
The principle is the same with say a manufacturer and a distributor. And the manufacturer is the artist. The distributor is the gallery. A manufacturer never sells. If the manufacturer, not all manufacturers, but some manufacturers do direct sales to the consumer, but you will never find them selling at a lower price than what you're going to be finding that product on Amazon. You're always going to find it's it's at least the same price or higher. And because you want the distributors to be able to sell it at a lower price.
Right. Yeah.
Right. No, absolutely. That's the perfect.
Matter of fact, what I would do is, if I was an artist and I knew a gallery was working hard for me, I would sell it on my website at a higher price.
Right.
And then, but encourage people to find, they could also buy direct from the gallery, and they could see that the price might be lower.
Yeah, I mean, we do have, by the way, we do have like long, it's not a very lengthy, but it's a pretty comprehensive agreement that we sign with each artist, and there's a number of things that we touch on, but obviously that's one of them, the pricing. And then the other thing is that they can't enter into relationships with gallery customers, for the purposes of soliciting them away from the gallery.
Sure.
If they, and that's always kind of a touchy thing, like a sticking point. So, for example, and my wife was really good at kind of pointing this out and communicating this to the artists whenever she sees it. But if you're going to deliver a painting to a customer, we don't want to have that artist's business card on the back of the painting. This is a gallery customer. We don't want, I know it's terrible, but we don't want those customers calling the artist directly if they decide that a friend of theirs needs a piece of art, or they have, another bedroom in the house that they'd like to hang a piece of art. And so they say, well, I like this guy or this girl, and I'm going to call them and get another piece of art. So we know that they have lives outside of the gallery. We know some of them do online businesses. We know some of them might even do, be in other galleries and things like that. But we don't want to know about it. And we don't want our customers to know about it. We're in the business of making money. That's what this is. It's not a cooperative.
And that's part of one of my questions was going to be, what should artists reasonably expect from a gallery representation? Part of the gallery's job is curating that art buyer base.
Building a customer base, and that takes a lot of time, money, and effort, and that essentially that the artist is being able to take advantage of, through the gallery hard work. And so, the gallery needs to be able to, it has to be able to receive a commission in order to be able to function.
There's things that a gallery provides, and again, you find this in your research when you do this on any gallery. That's a question to ask. What does your gallery representation include? There's the split. There is, again, if there's a non-compete clause, but that the gallery is also going to provide things if they've already curated a good base promotion. If they're going to do, we used to buy the direct mail of prominent zip codes in Austin households, and we would send direct mail pieces there. We're going to host parties, and we're going to be the ones basically financing the wine and cheese experience for buyers to come out and meet the artists. There's a lot of costs that we're going to do. We're also basically going to be paying for the insurance of the gallery. If something happens, the gallery went up in flames, we would be able to compensate our artists. We're gonna have a paid staff that learns about the artists, their artwork, so that they can kind of explain to a buyer and kind of give the story behind, because that's a lot of it, the story behind your art that makes people buy it. And art is always an emotional buy. So as a gallery, you try to hire people who are going to be able to convey that emotional aspect of the art to a buyer, so that they want to come back and either meet the artist, buy more art. You want to make a collector out of them. So there's a lot of things that I think. Is there anything else that you can think of that an artist should reasonably expect from a gallery?
I mean, I think this is just my experience. I think that the staff who works at an art gallery shouldn't be order takers. They should be order makers. And I think when people come in, I think that is all the difference in the world between, in my opinion, having a really good week at the gallery or having not a good week at the gallery. And that's, if you have gallery staff where people come in and it's like, welcome in. If you have any questions, let me know. That's absolutely horrible. Absolutely horrible. But if you have somebody comes in and takes a personal interest, and you have a staff who takes personal interest in everybody who comes in and really tries to get to understand what are their needs and what are they there for, it's all the difference in the world. It's not just a question of, the artist shouldn't just think that I'm going to put it up on the wall, and if it sells, it sells, and if it doesn't, it doesn't. The gallery staff in there has a lot to do with it. And so that's something that they, it's an intangible, but it makes all the difference.
Yeah.
But again, the starting point has to be that your art is something that people want to buy. And if it's not, no matter how good of a salesperson you are, it's not going to happen. You cannot sell it.
That's funny you should say that. I have a funny story. I don't know if I told you. So I guess it was about a year ago. I was in Vancouver, Canada. Okay. And we were staying at this really nice hotel. And the hotel was kind of connected to this area, which I don't call it a mall, but a little kind of shopping area and some like really boutique stores and stuff. And I walked into one, which was a gallery. And I was immediately, the really nice elderly lady immediately comes to me and introduces herself and asks what I was. And she had prints. And I saw some prints that she had hanging up that I recognized were ones that we had done here in San Antonio at FinerWorks. And she was trying to sell me on, buying the prints and not to take anything away from, there's if I was in the market for those, I would have bought them. But I thought it was really neat how she was really, and not in a kind of pushy salesman type way, but she was like making sure she was there if I had any questions. I mean, and it was really kind of a pleasant experience, and it was. Whereas I've walked in other galleries and it's like, hey, how you doing? You need to let me know. And just kind of, so it was just you could tell that and it wasn't the sense like she was desperately wanting the sale. It's just she just wanted to make sure that, hey, I'm here to help you. Let me know if you have any questions about the art. And I did mention and say, I know who this artist is. I'm actually the founder of the company that manufactures the prints, which went to another interesting conversation. But it was a lot of fun. But
what we do is when people come into the gallery, it's we're never pushy in terms of trying to get somebody to buy something who we don't think is ready or who we don't think really loves that painting. What I want our people in the gallery to focus on is to make sure that the people who come into the gallery, before they leave the gallery, because the likelihood that you just strolled into a gallery and you're going to walk out with a $3,000 painting is very, very low. But what we want everybody just to know before they leave are what are all the other things that the gallery offers them outside of what they've just witnessed with their eyes. And so, they should know before they leave that we have a website that has 3,500 original paintings on it, so that when they go home, they can look. They should know that there's a website where they can upload pictures of their wall and see what the art looks like in their own home. They should know that we have financing options. They should know that we only sell hand-painted originals and that they're only done by local artists, that we offer payment, just all kinds of different things that we offer. And I think, then they're much more likely to go home and check out the website and then, maybe call back or come back or tell their friends about this really cool website that they saw. That's a great resource for local art. So we're never pushing people really, to buy something right there on the spot, unless, let's say, somebody who comes in and you can see that they really love something, but they're just nervous about making that expense. So sometimes people need a little bit of a helping hand to get from point A to point B, just because it's a nerve-wracking experience, when you're spending that kind of money. but I would say that, 95% of the time, it really is just a matter of speak to the people, try to make some type of connection with people who are in there, try to understand a little bit about why they walked in there and maybe what they're looking for. If not now, then maybe in 6 months from now. Try to understand what they like so that you can show them other things on the TV from the catalog that might appeal to them. But just give them information so that when they leave, they have information to be able to, that might lead to a sale at some later time. But nothing is more maddening than seeing people come into the gallery and just, somebody might greet them, welcome in, let me know if you have any questions. That's just
that can be frustrating for any business owner.
Yeah.
What about price setting? Okay, and also does that ever become an area of contention? Because I do, one things I've seen, I've witnessed is where and it's almost like the artist does not grasp that hey, that there's a tier system as far as pricing, that there's the seller needs to make some money and then the artist makes money. But it's like, if the seller's selling a painting for $5,000, the artist is not going to get $5,000, and they're wondering why. Well,
split.
Yeah, there's a split.
Right.
Sometimes it's almost this disconnect. But how is pricing determined? How do you guys determine pricing, and what can the artists expect? Not necessarily percentage-wise, but how should they approach the gallery? Should they tell the gallery, this is what I'm asking, or should they approach the gallery and say, how much should I expect? What is that? How is that conversation?
Yeah. Do you provide?
I think it depends largely on where they're at in their artistic career. So I think if you're just starting out, but let's just say you've got really good talent and you got my eye, and I'm thinking that's really, really nice art. I'd like to bring it in, but you're still new. You're still, in terms of your career, you're at the start. So what the advice that I would give is, what do you think is a fair value for your time? What do you think you're worth? Do you think you're worth $25 an hour? Do you think you're worth $50 an hour? What do you think is a fair living wage for you, for what your commitments are in your life? Whatever you've got to pay for. So if you think that your time is worth $50 an hour, then you price it out. If it took you 6 hours to paint it and you think you're worth $50 an hour, that's $300, and the canvas cost you $150. So it's $450. You know that the gallery has to make X, Y, or Z, and build it out that way. I think if you're just starting. And then obviously all that's out the window when you're known and recognized and people are seeking out your art, right? Then it becomes a question of, if I sell it to you, how much would I have gotten for it if I sold it to him? So it's a totally different exercise. But there is friction with some of the artists at times who are looking to, I think, overprice their art because of maybe where they want to get to, the way that they're looking to position themselves in the art world. And so where it gets a little bit contentious is where, they think it's harmless. They think it's harmless just to put it on the website, a painting for $12,000. What's the harm? I can put it on for $12,000. Nobody, what's the big deal? It's my art. That's what I think it's worth. And so, it needs to be explained to the artist from time to time that it's not a harmless exercise. Not only are they doing damage to their own reputation, but number two, they're doing damage to the gallery's reputation.
Sure.
Because what happens is your gallery customers or future potential customers are looking at the gallery and say, this gallery is out of touch with the market. I'm afraid that if I buy something from them, they don't understand how art should be priced, and I'm going to be ripped off. Mm-hmm. And so it's not a harmless exercise to just price your art any way you want to. You can do damage to the gallery's reputation. So that's something that I occasionally have to deal with artists. But just generally what I'll tell them is, if you want a really good idea of where your art should be priced, my website actually allows you to do that to some extent. So if you were to go onto my main shopping page, so it's just a landing page where you're shown all the paintings for sale, and you sort it by popularity, or actually now some functionality that I added to the website a couple of months ago, maybe, you can actually show only what's out of stock and then look through the out of stock ones. That means they're sold, and you can see what paintings are selling for. And then you look at that and say, okay, who am I relative to that artist who sold that piece that I would say is kind of comparable? So here, if you just click on the logo, the San Antonio Artist Collective logo.
Okay.
And where it says filter selected, if you scroll down,
Okay.
you scroll down a bit, and then you can click on out of stock right under it there. So you can, let's say, click on out of stock and then click on abstract. Let's just scroll down a bit more.
Abstract.
Click on abstract, and yeah, that's fine. And if you go back up and click filter. So if you're an abstract artist looking to join the gallery, you can say, okay, these are paintings that have actually sold. And these are what they're selling for.
Yeah.
And so what am I making? And, if you were to take the example, for example, of Copper Fog, which is, almost 50 by 60, an original painting in a frame of a beautiful abstract, and that went for $2,500. Mm-hmm. Then do you actually think that you're going to get for your abstract that's a 36 by 48, $4,000? That's not framed. And if you do think so, you better be able to explain it to me. Why you think somebody would choose yours over theirs. So this is a great resource, by the way, for abstract artists to see what is art actually selling for.
Yeah, because those are live sales, basically.
Right.
That's great. Well, do you think most of your sales are online, or are they through the in-person gallery, or is it 50-50?
It's definitely changing as word is getting out, about us in the community, and people are starting. We're slowly, it's this long kind of progression of becoming a destination. That's what we want to become. We want to become a destination where people who are looking for art wake up in the morning and say, I've heard of this gallery. I'm going out there today to see their art. But what I have found with the online store is that, like in most of the economy, it supports the sale in the gallery. Mm-hmm. So people will more and more. I'll hear people coming in saying, I've been to your website. I saw this art that I really liked. And they're coming in to just see stuff on the walls, but they're familiar with who we are, and they've been to the website. So it's definitely helping. But we do get, obviously walk-ins, and we will make sales, but it's becoming much more frequent that people have done their homework.
Sure. Should artists concentrate, I guess, would you say or recommend artists concentrate, and this is a twofold question, I think, but should they concentrate on galleries within their region versus if I'm an artist, should I try to get my artwork represented by a gallery in, say, Dallas, or? Depends
again where you are in your art career.
Yeah.
You're going to always start locally, mm-hmm. and then, you get known either regionally within maybe even your own state. If you're doing stuff like here, we have the Bayou City Art Festival. You might go up to the Dallas area and go to Deep Ellum, where they have some of the art festivals, and you start to get known within the Texas art circuit. You find a lot of what I've seen, or we have artists then who start doing the national art circuits and they start getting gallery representation, because some of them, gallerists, a lot of the times we're art junkies. We will go to those fairs. We do pick up some people from art fairs, and you're able to see that. And then again, it just depends. Like some galleries will be regional galleries. Some galleries will be galleries that carry well-known artists. And
so based upon that, an artist really should be conscientious, I think, of their local market, mm-hmm. what the local market is willing to pay.
Yes.
So
yeah, I think you have to start somewhere, and so where you live.
Yeah. So if I, let's say, scenario, I have a friend that's an artist living in New York, mm-hmm. and selling his paintings in New York, but he's about the same level as people know of him and so forth. And then I'm in San Antonio. Don't expect to sell my paintings in San Antonio at the same level that that artist in New York is necessarily.
I've run into different experiences, like where I've had some artists who are, again, now those are different art markets, Los Angeles,
that's the thing,
Miami.
is they're different art markets, so they
usually if they've
right.
started in those art markets and are commanding those,
well, not necessarily commanding, but they are, you know, their sales are typically going to be at, dependent upon that the region is going to impact.
The region knows it, and I even do when I have to price out for the artists I work with. I'll say, this is what we ask for in our art market. We're going to go to this one, and I'll go see maybe what a gallery has. It's along the things, and then I'll go research the artist, what they're pricing at. Like, okay, well, they've been 35 years in the New York market, obviously. So we're not going to be able to do that. They're selling in Denver, just as we're selling from Denver. We're both out of state, but that artist was being carried by XYZ Gallery, or some of them are in some of these galleries that are chain galleries, and so they're known already. Yeah. So there's a lot of factors.
There's a lot of things go into play as far as pricing the artwork, and
that's why it's such a. That's why it always it really does mystify people. But again, if no matter where you are, and if you can explain your numbers, and it's got a solid background to it, why you're coming up with that figure, some galleries will work with you. And like I said, and we do offer our advice and say,
right,
you're probably not going to get that in this market. So do you want to come down a little bit, or can we negotiate? If we should make the sale, can we negotiate down to XYZ price? At least that's what I've had at the gallery I've worked at. So I have some prices that this is as low as I can go and negotiate, because my whole thing is I might get somebody who comes in and I know they're a really great art collector. They're new to this new artist coming into our gallery. And we would say, okay, well, can I come down this much for it without me having to sit there and call the artists while the collector's in the gallery? I know what I can come down with, and I know that collector's going to come back. So
the opposite is true as well, by the way, and that is when artists are underpricing and undervaluing themselves. And so I deal with that quite a bit, where an artist will come in and I'll say, you're nuts. Absolutely not. This painting should be 2 or 3 times what you're saying it is, based on the local art market. And they'll just be in shock when the painting sells. And they get that check. And very often I won't even tell them, if I'm being honest. And when I say, I just give them the check for what it actually sold for, and they'll be in absolute shock. And that also is part of the value that the gallery has to deliver. But it's true on the flip side.
Sure. So if I'm an artist and I would hoping to have you represent me, what do I do? Do I just show up one day with a wagon full of paintings and, hey, check out my work, or do I say, hey?
I think, I thought I was being a bit of a hardliner, because my policy has always been send it in electronically. We have a process that we describe on the website in order to be able to submit your art. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Well, what's your background selling art? Are you still painting art? A lot of people will have art that they painted 20 years ago that they're looking to get rid of. That's not who I want to partner with. I want to partner with people who are constantly creating new work, who are hungry and motivated to sell their art, because we are a business, as opposed to people who are kind of, passive about it. And if it sells, it sells. If it doesn't, it doesn't. So what I would say is send it in by email. I think I speak for all gallery owners around the world when I say that if you show up on a Saturday with your wagon of art and there are customers in there and you want to pull out your portfolio and start having a conversation, it's incredibly frustrating and annoying. And so don't just show up to the gallery with your stuff. Put it through the proper channels. We get to everything, and we will eventually respond. If we don't, by the way, we make it pretty clear on the website to say, if we're interested in listing your art, we're going to let you know within 7 days. And so don't call us on day 8 and say, hey, you never got back to me. That's correct. You are correct. We didn't get back to you. As you know, so we do kind of explain it on the website. We're not going to accept everybody, obviously, but
Sure.
I would say this: we accept way more people than we don't. I do take a step back and say to myself, you know what, like, what I think about that particular piece of art isn't, the be all and end all of whether or not that's good art. And, I'm constantly surprised by what people are attracted to and what they buy. And we try to be a lot of things to different people without getting out of control.
Sure.
And clouding the space. But yeah, electronically is the way to go. Send it in, and then that's the starting point.
Understood.
Now, your gallery does originals. Is there a reason? Just I'm curious because we're printmakers, and we do fine art print. Is there a reason that y'all just stayed on my Texas? Is there a reason y'all stayed more on originals instead of offering prints? Because it's I know we get a lot of people who have a really good print base, like where they're selling really good numbers. I mean, we've had some clients that we would have to like almost basically have a dedicated printer for them.
We'll do these big order fulfillment batches, and usually they come in, just in these waves, so it's not so we get a chance to get caught up and stuff. But yeah, there's there is a prints market, obviously.
Yes.
But you focus on originals, but some galleries
our gallery does
have shifted into I don't want to say doing more prints, but allowing prints.
Yeah,
but some have not. What are the pros and cons that you see from your?
So actually, it's kind of you're going to laugh why I originally didn't decide to go with prints. And so the first reason in the beginning why I didn't do it is because I was on a GoDaddy e-commerce platform, which limited the number of actual SKUs that you could have on there.
Sure.
And so I said, if I just couldn't handle prints on that platform. And so I said, no, I'm only going to do originals. The other reason for it really was to kind of use like a football analogy, but if you're a running back and you see your lane and you see an opening, that's the opening I'm going to take. And to me, that lane was nobody else is doing this. Nobody else is doing only originals, only San Antonio local artists. And so I said, you know what, I think there's an unmet need there, and that's what I'm going to do. And that's how we got to this point, was by doing it that way. I will say though, that every once in a while, I might be, having a talk with my wife and say, should we, what do you think? I mean, should we start to do this? And so, should we kind of maybe morph into something a little bit different, to say we're only local artists, but we're not only originals anymore. Now we're also going to do prints. So I don't know. I can say that every day that that wall is being chipped away at a little bit that I've put up. But I think if I did do prints, I think I would want to do, I would want to be very specific about what type of prints I want to do. I guess what I don't want to be in the business of is I don't want to evolve into, bin trays in my gallery of $10 prints. Like I don't ever want to get there. So if I were going to do
existing sales, you don't.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. That's not going to pay the rent. I don't think on the scale that I would do it. But I could see myself maybe one day getting to a point where we're doing high quality, let's say giclée prints of a numbered series. And in that case, I might only agree to do it if it was exclusive to the gallery. Mm-hmm. And so that I knew that they weren't going to be selling prints on their own, or they weren't going to be selling it through anybody else, because then it just becomes commoditized. And I don't want to be, the beautiful thing about original hand paintings is it's the anti-commodity.
Yeah.
And so I would want to approach prints from the same standpoint.
Yeah.
If I
got into doing the prints because at one time we used to have the giclée printer there, so we could run the closed edition series ourselves. Mm-hmm. It just became too expensive to maintain that machine. And so we ended up, and artists were basically doing these already. So it kind of lent out to that thing, and we would ask for it. And we would usually go on, if it was already a original painting that had sold, it was already in a private collection. And we would take those, and then, and it, like I said, they've done pretty good because
I kind of, you know, it's, and you probably, I'd probably be the last person you think would say this, but what Norman says, if I was in Norman's place, I would feel the same way as him. I would prefer to sell originals over prints, and only prints if I really felt that it would not take away from what I'm. And I think the way to do that, and again, not to, you know, obviously, you know, a lot of our users are selling, you know, $15, $20, you know, 8x10 giclée prints, you know, that they're selling on Etsy and stuff like that, which is great. But I would want, you know, if I owned a brick and mortar gallery, I'd want any giclée prints. I would want to be in a really, you know, high-end frame, part of a signed and numbered series.
Well,
and because those would be commanding the better price, the higher price point, that would almost be competing with some of the original paintings.
I would want to approach prints in the same way that like Park West approaches prints.
Yes. Well, Gabe Leonard, for instance, and he was the one, Gabe Leonard does, you know, giclée canvas prints, and he does them also with a hand embellishment. So they actually end up being almost unique, and they're a very high price point on there as far as the other artists that we had sold at that time. But his prints could command that, and because he did that hand embellishment to each one, we didn't have to number them because they were unique in that aspect. Because he might just do the smoke on this instance, but he might just do the highlights to add or texturize some of the stuff. So we can ensure that they be the same.
And I would probably want to be very selective of who that artist is.
Exactly.
Because if I'm fortunate enough to represent an artist that is willing to do giclée prints, but is also highly collected, you know, or widely collected, then I would really want to entertain the idea of, you know, especially if I don't have the ability to carry their originals because that original has sold, but the ability to sell a signed and numbered print is kind of weird.
And the other thing too is just controlling the quality of the prints, right? So I would want to make sure that and I've given a lot of thought to this, and actually, Melissa, what I kind of settled on in my mind, not that I was going to do it, but that if I were to do it, it would probably be embellished prints, so that there was something unique about it, so that somebody could say, I have the one and only kind of original, but nobody else has this one. So that's kind of a good compromise, but also the quality of it. So I would definitely want to partner with somebody like yourself to say, I control the quality of the print, so that when it comes from this gallery, it's going to be of a certain standard every time, of a good quality standard. And I don't want to have, you know, the artist going out and finding the cheapest price they can find, you know, here or there, and, you know, questionable quality that bears the gallery's name. So,
and I think you being a regional representation of artists here would allow you to do that. We have some galleries that are artist owned, like in New Orleans, and that artist sends all of their canvas prints here, and they order them, we'll crate them, and we send them back to New Orleans. They do hand embellishment on each one, so when somebody goes to their gallery, of course it's all of their artwork, but they have, because they're the artists, they can go ahead and hand embellish
each print.
And I think that's a great way. But you, as a gallery here that's representing local, you have that unique aspect of being able to do that, because your artists are not in Timbuktu and need to get over here to do something like that. So
You know what, at the end of the day, there's so much opportunity, and I think that eventually I probably will get there. You know, the challenge that we have is that you know, this is a family business. This is this is something that I do on the weekends. It's, you know, when I can. This is something that I do in the evenings when I can. But I'm full-time employed, and that is my priority, obviously. And so there's only so much time I can give to it. So there's so many great ideas, and I'm proud of how far the gallery has come, and everybody that's contributed to the gallery. As I mentioned, my wife obviously could have never done it without her equal partner and fully invested. And the gallery staff that we have, could have never done it without all of their help. And I can't be there, during the day to help them. I can't be available during the day to help them. And so, I'm really pleased with how far that we've come in a relatively short period of time as a hobby. And it kind of confirms, I think, that we were onto a good idea. There was definitely a demand for it, and lots of great opportunities still to come. So,
sure.
And this is definitely one of them. But yeah, it's definitely a labor of love for everybody in the gallery.
And just a really quick, plug here too for your gallery. You're in La Cantera. You're near Neiman Marcus, across from the Starbucks, and you're open Monday through Sunday. So 7 days a week you're open. And don't get any ideas, James.
I already have that. Right. But La Cantera, just for anyone wondering that might be visiting San Antonio at some point, is an outdoor mall. Actually, it's very kind of nice, high-end mall.
Tiffany's is there. You have Neiman Marcus.
So
really
it attracts a lot of tourists because it's close to Six Flags.
And we're going to get ready just to kind of close this up. I want to thank you, Norman, so much for doing all this. And for those artists that are watching, put your where you're watching from and maybe your Instagram handle in the comments so that we can see. And for those of you who are not in San Antonio, who are FinerWorks customers, we do have a gallery to sell your prints. Geo Galleries
which
is part of.
It's a prints gallery.
It's a prints gallery.
We don't sell originals.
We don't do we don't do originals because that would be a little scary. But
and our we call it Geo Galleries because it's artists all over the world. So,
yes, because for some artists who are in different countries, having something in the U.S. where a lot of art buyers are, it's great. Your printer is here in the U.S. There's that time that you take from not having to get the order done and shipped to the U.S. and pay taxes and duties or any of that. So you have us sending right here. This is an artist, for instance, we have on our page who's also an employee, Caldrick. He's here in San Antonio and does amazing collage things. So if you, like I said, if you're an artist and you want to be able to do something like this and sell some prints, you also can look at Geo Galleries. You start that with your FinerWorks account and link it to Geo Galleries. And we hope many of you will try that and try to make some kind of residual income coming from, or a residual passive income from your prints that you have. Okay, and make sure it's okay with your gallery representation.
So any final questions that we may have?
Let's see if we get any
before we close. I think we kind of covered some of the questions that were asked, and
I tried to keep a pretty big selection of people who were coming in had questions. And again, I'm with the artist community here in San Antonio a lot, so get to hear that. And then we have Fort Worth, Texas there. Harold, thank you for watching. We appreciate it.
So and you even all the way from Australia.
Wow.
People watching. So it looks like I hopefully we answered most of the questions, and I think a lot of people have or I hope will come away with an understanding of what, from the perspective of the gallery owner, what they may be looking for. And every gallery is going to be different, but hearing it from you kind of gave us I think a real good perspective, and hopefully will help the artists become
if you're
successful.
watching this on replay, any questions, just put them in the comments, and we can, we'll relay them to Norman, or we'll try and answer them best we can here.
Yeah.
Thanks
this was
again.
great. Thank you. Thank you both. This was a wonderful experience. I'm so glad I had a chance to talk with you both, and love to do it again one day. Who knows, as the business evolves and I have another story to tell. But this was great. So thank you.
Thank you,
Yeah,
Norman.
absolutely.
Have a great evening.
And Melissa will be back in touch with you soon.
Yeah, sure will.
All right.
All right.
Yeah.
Thanks, Norman.
All right.
Take care.
Bye, guys.